Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk about the shooting that happened in the two mosques in New Zealand. It's a very devastating situation, and I'm gonna say this right off the bat because I know some people won't listen to the whole video, but I don't agree with resorting to that kind of barbaric measure to deal with something that you don't like. So this is what I'm trying to oppose. So just like I oppose Islamic terrorism, I also oppose this kind of terrorist attack against Muslims. I don't think this is the way that a civilized society would handle it, and I think that if we carry out attacks like this against Muslims, we're basically going down to the level of the terrorist attacks that they carry out on us. And I don't think this is the proper way to handle it. So one of the important things we're going to have to talk about today is the manifesto that the shooter wrote. So I saw the part of the videos. I didn't watch the gruesome parts, and now I hear that everything has been removed from the internet, and I understand why. I think the police has to do some investigation, and one of the examples that I saw in the video that is strange and that the police is going to want to look at is at one part of the where the shooter gets out of his car, grabs his guns from the back trunk and starts walking towards the mosque, and you see there's a little car that's right at the entrance, and the door is slightly open, the back passenger door, and it just closes very gently, and yet the shooter doesn't shoot that person and just proceeds to shoot everybody in his way after that. So I'm guessing the police is going to have to look into that part, and there's probably other evidence that is within that video that the police wants to take a look at before a whole bunch of people have seen it and have a chance to alert other people that might be part of this. So there could be jury implications, like there could be a whole bunch of reasons, but I don't think the police is removing that video for any kind of nefarious thing. I think they really sincerely need to look at it as pure evidence and approach this with their scientific method, which is why they've done that. So the manifesto, it's 74 pages. I've read it this morning. I just finished reading it, and this is why I'm recording now, and I don't have a lot of time. I have to head to work, so I'm going to try to do this as quickly as I can. But I did take down some notes, and I'm going to cover this with you because I don't think a lot of people in the mainstream media will have read the entire manifesto by the time they bring you the reports. And I think that I'm okay with the mainstream media reporting on casualties and what happened, but in about a few hours from now, they're going to start with the speculations, and they're going to start bringing in, if they haven't started already, I haven't had a chance to look at every piece of mainstream media, but they will start with the speculation, and part of the speculation is exactly what this guy wants to happen as he describes it in his manifesto. So here we go. These are the main points that he's angry at, and I'm resuming, that's a French word. I'm making it shorter for you guys. So the main theme is he's angry at invaders. This is about immigration. He is not happy with all immigrants, whether they're legal, not legal. If you're not white and you're not a European descent, he's angry at you for that if you're in a European type country or New Zealand or Australia or US or Canada. He's also angry at the government for allowing these invaders, and this is probably the biggest part. He's angry at the government, and he's angry at the most hatred he has is for the Muslim converts in these Western lands. So he dislikes the Muslims, but he is especially enraged against any Westerner who would actually go and convert to Islam. He's angry at Western society as a whole for what he says is nihilistic, hedonistic, and individualistic insanity. He's also angry at Turkey because they were allowed to be part of NATO. And one of his goals here is to create conflict between the pro-right gun activists and anti-gun right activists in the US, to further the social breakdown and to start a war. He wants a civil war to happen in the US. The undertone here is that the whites are going to win that civil war, but he does want to start a war against, a racial war where it's like the whites against everybody else. He hates that it's a melting pot, and he wants to get rid of that in the US. And He is also he wants the civil war to break out in the US so that the US has to spend all of their energies and resources dealing with that, and therefore can no longer deal with the foreign parts. So they'll be essentially out of foreign policy altogether if they have to deal with the civil war at home. Now his turning point towards the violence happened in April 2017. And this is where he came to the solution that the only resolution for this is a violent uprising. And so what happened in 2017, in April 2017, he visited Western Europe, and he went to places like Germany, Spain, France, and he says that he witnessed so many foreigners. He calls them invaders. Throughout the whole manifesto, he says invader. And the language of the manifesto is very reminiscent, to me at least, and you can let me know what you think, but of the Mein Kampf book that Hitler wrote. The way this guy speaks is very, very close to how Hitler spoke about the Jews and the gypsies. So, but I think while he was in Europe, there was an Islamic attack against a schoolgirl called Ebba Ackerland, that was the Stockholm attack in April, I believe it was April 2017, and he was very upset by that the shooter was very upset by that. And this girl was basically half deaf, so she couldn't hear the car that was speeding up on the promenade in the shopping center, and the car just took her out. Let's see what else I have here. Oh, he was very upset. He was pushed on edge by what he witnessed in the French cities. So he started asking himself, like when he says, he describes part of how he sat in his car and would watch all these invaders go in and out of the stores in France. And he says it doesn't matter which city you were in, you would go anywhere and this would happen. What pushed him over the edge is he started asking himself, why won't somebody do something about this? And then his solution is, I'm gonna do something about this. So this is how he arrived to the planning stages of this massacre that happened yesterday in New Zealand. The reason that I'm making this video today is to explain to you what is in this manifesto, and I'm going to keep covering a little bit of it, but the mainstream media is going to walk into this whole race baiting, pro-amendment, Second Amendment story that he wants them to walk into. They're going to start, they're probably going to start using the Ebba Ackerland story as well, saying, oh, he's avenging. And it is true, there are some parts of the manifesto where he talks about avenging all of the terror attacks that have happened on Europeans in the last decade from Islamic terrorism. But they're going to pick out these selective things, emotional things, to destroy essentially any nationalistic movement, any freedom of speech, any attempt that we have to discuss Islam. So via things like Islamophobia and the hate speech laws, they're going to really try to zone in on that and make an impact on that. And if they do that, and I think they will based on their track record, but they're going to be walking right into what this guy wants them to do. And I'm hoping that this video can show you this guy. It could be a false flag, I don't know yet. However, definitely a psychopath. And I'm going to tell you a little bit later on why I think he's a psychopath. But the mainstream media will use this to again, blame whites, blame xenophobic sentiment, portray all immigrants as victims. And in this case, they actually were. But it's going to be, they're going to use it to take freedoms away from us. So, the attack, the main reason for the attack, again, is the anti-immigrant sentiment this guy had. And his main problem with Islam is not the ideology like I have. Like I always criticize Islam, the ideology. I don't criticize Muslims. I criticize the ideology. His problem with Islam is the high birth rates, the fertility rates. And this is a main theme throughout his manifesto. He says if you ignore the birth rates, even if you get your own birth rate up, like the white birth rate, even if you get that up, if you don't get rid of the existing invader birth rate, this is according to him, you're gonna have a problem. There's no point in having our own birth rate rise if we don't deal with that. So what it comes down to is, on top of being a psychopath, he's an eco-fascist. So he has a whole section detailing this. And I'm going to tell you the definition of fascism. It's a word that's been thrown out a lot, and I don't know if everybody realizes exactly what it means. But it's a political philosophy, and it puts the race above any individuality. And in the classic fascist cases, it's always been the white race. So if you look back to Italy in the Second World War, they had the Italian white race above all, and they had their control, an autocratic control of the government over every aspect. So the aspect of freedom of speech, the aspect of economy, what you do with your daily life. So it's instead of taking over the means of productions like the communists will do, the fascists will dictate to the private citizen how they are to manage their business. So it's a bit of a different, both are completely centralized autocracies, but that's the difference, the main difference between fascism and the communist one. The eco part, the shooter is actually wanting the preservation of the natural order. Has a whole section on that on page 38 if you want to go read it. I'm going to link the manifesto in the description. But why he chose violence is he sees force as power. He sees that there's no other option at the point that we're at. And the reason that I think he's a psychopath, it comes into page 22 of his manifesto, where he says, "The children of invaders do not stay children." And this is how he justifies the slaughter of innocent children. And I believe there have been some reports of kids as young as 3-year-olds being shot by this guy. Now I have kids. I have 3 kids, and my youngest is a 4-year-old, and I can't even imagine if somebody came just somewhere where I was praying and just shot my kid. It's incredibly devastating, and this just shows you the level of depravity in this whole action of shooting up a mosque. So the shooter is angry at the state of the Western world. He hates the diversity is our strength motto. He has a part where he goes over this. He adds a whole bunch of links of all of the rapes that have happened to the British girls. So there's about a page and a half of links of the most high, visible, prominent cases of rape that were all done by Islamic Pakistani gangs. He thinks the radicalization of the young white European males is inevitable at this point. He has a hit list as part of his manifesto. He thinks that if you go after the super powerful predominant people, you'll make a bigger impact. So he does name people like Angela Merkel, Sadiq Khan, and he wants people to kill CEOs who promote diversity hires. He has a section where he talks about there's no sheltered meadow, and what he means by that is that there is no place in the Western world where there is none of these invaders anymore. So he says, instead of watching your brothers go down in a different country, start rising up in your own country, and everybody needs to rise up in their own country. He thinks there's no democratic solution, and he mourns the loss of the different European identities. He says when anybody can become a German, what's Germany anymore? And he's also anti-capitalist because of the cheap labor it brought on, and because of the ensuing immigration that followed the cheap labor. So he's not exactly a communist on that side, but he does share some of the communist values, but definitely an eco-fascist with a very, very clear psychopath underlying there. And yeah, this is what prompted him to go in and do this shooting. So I don't know what to say anymore about this. The mainstream media will take advantage of this. Probably some Muslim rights activists will also take advantage of this and start slamming Islamophobia laws. That's not the solution. The solution is not to shut up people, but the solution is to talk more about this so we can come to some kind of a peaceful resolution before we get more guys like this going after and shooting up more mosques. And then the response will be more Islamic terrorism, and then more guys are going to go shoot up mosques. And where does this end? This is New Zealand. This is not supposed to happen. So anyways, okay guys, I'm going to let you go, and let me know what you think in the comment section.